Thank you. Ms. Roberts, you've seen that video before?
Yes, I have.
Is that you and the defendant and Ms. McCabe going into Meadows?
Yes, it is.
When you came out of Meadows, did you have a chance again to look at the defendant's taillight on her Lexus?
Yes, when we left the house, she pointed it out to me.
Did you stop and get a closer look?
Yes, I did.
I want you to describe to the jury your best memory of what it looked like.
Karen pointed out and said, look, my taillight. And she said, do you think I hit him? And I said, no, I don't think you hit him. What are you talking about? Let's just go find him. But the taillight itself, the piece was missing. And as you got closer, there's a metal sort of square, and one of the pieces was sort of sticking out. And I only remember it because I thought if someone walks by that, they're going to catch their jacket on it.
How long of a time did you have to actually look at the taillight?
Under a minute.
How close were you to the taillight when you looked at it?
I was in front of it. I could see.
And when you talked about the taillight, you said a piece was missing. Is this the left side or the right side of the Lexus that you saw the piece of the taillight missing?
It was the right side, so it was the passenger taillight.
May I approach?
Yes.
Should I remain, Your Honor? Sure. Thank you. May I recognize what is in that photo?
That is Karen's SUV.
Is it similar or a fair and accurate depiction of how you saw the vehicle that morning?
Without the snow, I can't be positive, but this square piece was missing, as is in this picture.
The photograph you look at is not the car in the snow in the driveway the day you saw it.
Correct.
Putting that aside, is that a fair and accurate depiction of the damage that you saw to the right rear taillight of Ms. Weed's car that morning?
Yes.
I'd move to introduce this as an exhibit, please.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. Exhibit 13.
Thank you. With the court's permission, I'd like to publish Exhibit 13.
Sure.
Ms. Roberts, I'm going to ask you to take a look at the photo that you just described. Do you see the white area in that photograph?
Yes.
Is that where the taillight had missing part?
Yes.
And where was the metal in relation to that white part that you see?
If you look at the white part, it's the upper left. It's sort of like a rectangle, but it's vertical, sort of.
And that's the metal part that you were concerned about?
Yes. One of the side, it's almost like an encasement, but the right side, I think it was the right side, was sticking out a little bit, like out from the car toward me.
Did you express any concern about the metal sticking out?
Yes, because I thought at that height it could clip someone's coat or something if they were walking by.
You mentioned the defendant asked you if you thought she hit somebody.
Correct.
How many times did she ask you that?
She asked me that in the driveway. How many times? She said, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? And my answer was, no, I don't think you hit him. I'm sure you hit something because your taillight's broken, but I don't think you hit him. Why would I think that?
Did you have any reason to think at that point that she hit anybody?
No.
Did she ever repeat that phrase or question in the same or similar manner again that night?
She did at the scene where we found John.
Before or after you found John?
After we found John.
Okay, so we'll get to that then. Could we please take that picture down, Ms. Gilman? How far of a ride is it from Meadows to Fairview?
I don't know, maybe 8 minutes.
So when you left John's house at Meadows and you traveled to Fairview, you said you were driving.
Yes.
Was there any comments or conversation from the defendant on that ride?
There was talk of Bella's mom, who lived near Jen's sister. There was talk, and I said, where is Fairview? And Jen said, it's off of Chapman, so it was near Spring Lane. And I knew of somebody previously that John had dated on Spring Lane, so I brought it up thinking, could he have gone there if he was walking home? I don't know. I didn't know where he was or why he was missing.
Describe the mood in the car.
Well, it was scary driving, and Karen was, frantic, and she was yelling. I don't even remember at this point what she was yelling, but she was yelling. She had an elevated voice. She would be in between us while I was driving, and she would sit back in the back seat and be in between us.
Did you have any words with Miss Reed?
I told her to shut up several times because I was trying to drive and I couldn't concentrate. I told her to sit back and buckle up because it was bad driving. I didn't want to get into an accident and her not have a seatbelt on.
How often was the yelling on the way to Fairview?
Oh, several times. It was like you couldn't control her, and I was trying to drive in a blizzard.
You went down Spring Road before you get to Fairview?
No, Spring Lane is before Fairview off of Chapman.
And did anything remarkable happen on Spring Lane?
I'm sorry?
Anything remarkable happen on Spring Lane?
No.
More of the same?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned yesterday that when you got to Fairview, the defendant began kicking your door.
Yes.
When you looked out, you didn't see anything.
I did not.
And at some point, you ran over to where Miss Reed was.
Yes.
Tell us what your first observations are when you get close to the defendant.
Well, it was a shape of a body, like the length of a body, shape of a body. She ran over, and I said, oh, my God. I jumped out of the car. I ran over, and she was lifting up his shirt to try and warm him, I guess. So I went over to his head, and I began to dig his head out of the snow.
Can you take us back and describe for us what you're seeing?
His body was completely covered, but his head was completely covered. So I started to dig around his face and his eyes, and his left eye was fine, but his right eye looked like it was huge, like he had something happen to it. And after that, I told Karen to get off him. We were going to start CPR. I had been certified at work through the American Red Cross, so I knew chest compressions were more important. So I started to do chest compressions, and I yelled to Jen and told her to call 911. Karen was trying to do mouth-to-mouth. I don't know if she knew what she was doing, but I knew chest compressions were more important, so I concentrated on that. I yelled for Jen. I carry blankets. I have 2 kids, so I carry blankets in the car, so I yelled to Jen to get the blankets. I don't know what I thought I was doing with blankets, but I wrapped them around his head, just thinking, we're trying to warm him up. He was covered in snow.
When you first ran over, you mentioned that his head was covered in snow. Was his head fully covered in snow?
Yes.
When you looked down, could you see who it was at first?
At first, no. I had to dig him out.
When is it that you realized that this was your friend John?
When I cleared the snow off his face.
Did you feel his skin?
Did I feel what?
His skin.
Yes.
Okay. And could you tell us how it felt?
It was cold. Like he had been there in the elements for a while.
You mentioned that his head was covered with snow before you brushed off the snow. Was other parts of his body still covered in snow?
Yes.
Can you share with us what you saw?
His legs were covered. His arms were by his side. He was on his back. Karen had lifted up his shirt, so now his shirt was down, but I was doing chest compressions so you could see his clothing. He had blood coming out of his nose and his mouth. And when I put the baby blankets under the back of him, there was blood on the blanket, so I think he had a cut on the back of his head.
Was the blood from his nose and mouth frozen or running?
I don't think it was running. It was not gushing.
You said that you brushed off the snow from John's face.
Yes.
Did you brush it off from both sides?
Yes.
Did you brush it off to the extent that you uncovered his entire face and head?
Yes.
So, did you have gloves on?
No.
Bare hands?
Yes.
And that's how you felt the temperature of his skin?
Yes.
When you brushed off both sides of his face, did you ever feel any pieces of glass sticking out of his face?
No.
Did you ever see any pieces of glass sticking out of his face?
I did not.
How long did you give chest compressions for to Mr. O'Keefe?
Oh, I can't be sure. I would say 4 minutes, 5 minutes while we were waiting for the EMTs. I had Jen take over at one point. And then the EMTs came. So however long it took for them to get to us, 6 minutes.
When you were trying to save your friend John, did the defendant say anything?
She was just running around screaming, Kerry, Kerry, Jen, Kerry, Jen.
Was anything said at that point about her taillight?
About what?
Her taillight.
No, when the EMTs were around and they were working on the body, she was running around and saying, did I hit him? Did I hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead?
When you were waiting for the police and EMTs, just briefly, what was the temperature like and the visibility like?
The temperature was freezing because I remember at one point I couldn't feel my knees, which is why I had Jen take over. And the wind was still whipping and the snow was still coming down.
At some point, did help arrive?
Yes, they did.
And when help arrived, what did you do?
I stood back and watched them work on him.
Did you see first responders trying to give first aid to Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
How long were you outside for that morning?
At that point?
Well, the entire morning.
Oh, maybe a half hour.
When the first responders were trying to save John, what else were you doing?
I was calling my husband. I called my mother. When they put him in the back of the ambulance, I then made a call to Mrs. O'Keefe. I think I called Mr. O'Keefe first, but he didn't answer. So I called Mrs. O'Keefe and told her John had been in an accident. And she screamed, I can't do this again.
What did you do after that phone call?
The police put Jen and Karen in the back of a cruiser. And I was looking in the ambulance to see what was going on with my friend. So I was standing outside of the cruiser. They were inside. I was standing outside just watching. And Karen was saying, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? And I said, no, they're working on him. I can see tubes moving. I can see them moving. Something, if he was dead, they wouldn't be working on him. She grabbed the front of my shirt and said, are they working on him? And I said, yes, they're working on him. At this point, I think I was in shock. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't think he was dead. I thought they could save him. I knew he was in the EMT, in the ambulance with the EMTs, and I was just hopeful that they were going to be able to do more than I could.
You said that at one point, Ms. McCabe and the defendant were in a car, and then you mentioned at some point the defendant grabbed you. Did she grab you when she was in the car or out of the car?
She was in the car. I was outside of the car.
At some point, did the defendant, Ms. McCabe, get out of the car?
Yes.
Did you go over to the ambulance before it left?
Did I go over to the ambulance?
Before it left?
No.
Did you watch?
Yes.
At some point, did you see the defendant get out of the car, the police cruiser?
No, I didn't see them get out, but they were out at one point.
They were what?
They were out of the vehicle, but I didn't watch them get out. I was watching the ambulance.
At some point, you saw them out?
Yes.
And did they watch, or were they near you when you were watching the ambulance?
Did what?
Were they near you when you were watching the ambulance?
I don't know.
No.
I wasn't concentrating on either one of them. I was concentrating on my friend in the ambulance.
When you were trying to save Mr. O'Keefe, did you ever see any signs of life?
I did not. And I checked his pulse. No, I did not.